I used to believe I was invisible, but invisible would have been kinder. At least invisible people aren't hated. Me? I wasn't just ignored. I was unwanted. The Lancaster mansion where I spent my entire childhood wasn't my home. It was my prison. A house where every polished marble floor reminded me where I didn't belong. A house where every gold-framed portrait smiled down at a family I'd never be part of. A house where my name was never spoken. Because to them, I wasn't Evelyn. I was the maid's daughter. I was 6 the first time I truly understood what that meant. Mrs. Lancaster hosted one of her famous charity dinners. Glittering chandeliers, velvet tablecloths, crystal glasses that sparkled like trapped stars. Laughter spilled like champagne around the dining table. I stood in the corner, clutching a tiny stuffed rabbit, hoping maybe someone would smile at me. Mrs. Lancaster noticed. She turned to her guests, her face smooth and sweet, and said, "Oh, don't mind her. That's Rosa's little girl. She just wanders." The table erupted in polite laughter. My cheeks burned. That night, curled on a thin mattress in the attic, I whispered to my mother, "Mama, why don't they like me?" She brushed back my hair, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "One day, Evelyn, you'll have a life bigger than this house." Back then, I didn't believe her. Life in the attic was a life of rules. No stepping on the marble floors, no touching the piano in the West Hall, no swimming in the glittering blue pool. Even the kitchen, where my mother spent most of her life working, was off limits unless she was on duty. Melissa Lancaster, their golden-haired daughter, loved reminding me of that. "You live in the attic," she'd sneer, flipping her perfect curls. "You're basically the help. Don't forget it." I didn't cry, not in front of her. But later, in the quiet, I buried my face in my pillow and promised myself one thing. One day, they'll regret every single word. I was 8 when I overheard Mrs. Lancaster whispering to a friend, "I can't believe Rosa insists on keeping her daughter here. It's distracting. The poor thing should be grateful she has a roof." I remember pressing my little hands against the attic floorboards, forcing myself not to cry. That was the first time I wished I could disappear. By 10, I'd memorized every insult. By 12, I'd memorized every exit in that house, every hallway, every staircase, every locked door I wasn't allowed to open. The Lancaster mansion was beautiful, but it was never home. Melissa turned 16 when I was 14. Her birthday party made the society pages. A rented yacht, a famous DJ, imported champagne. Fireworks lit up the night sky over the mansions. Infinity pool. 2 weeks later, my birthday came. Nobody noticed. That night, I sat cross-legged on my attic floor, staring out the tiny window at the drifting smoke trails of Melissa's fireworks, and whispered, "Some people are born chosen. And I'm not." Before we continue, if you love dark, emotional revenge stories, please subscribe to my channel. Your support inspires us to make bigger, better, and more powerful stories for you. At 16, I earned a full scholarship to an elite private school, the first girl from our neighborhood to ever do it. I came home clutching the acceptance letter, my chest bursting with pride. Mrs. Lancaster sat in the kitchen sipping wine. Melissa leaned lazily on the counter, scrolling, her phone. "I got in," I said, holding out the letter. "A full scholarship. Everything's covered." For a second, Mrs. Lancaster stared blankly. Then she smiled, cold and sharp. "You're not going." I froze. "What?" She set her glass down with a soft clink. "Evelyn, be realistic. That school isn't for people like you." Melissa snickered without looking up. "She's right. Don't embarrass yourself trying to fit in." That night, lying awake on the attic floor, I swore I'd never forgive them. 2 years later, my mother died. I begged the Lancasters to let me stay, just until I figured things out. They refused. Melissa packed my mother's belongings into a cardboard box like they were trash and handed them to me with a mocking smile. "Guess you're finally leaving where you never belonged." I walked out of that mansion with nothing but a suitcase, a stack of photographs, and a fire in my chest that would never go out. That night, as I slept on a friend's couch, I whispered to myself, "One day, this world will know my name." The years that followed nearly broke me. I worked 3 jobs: scrubbing toilets in office buildings, bussing tables at diners, stocking shelves overnight. I lived in a 1-room apartment with peeling paint and a leaky ceiling. There were nights I cried quietly into my pillow, exhaustion crushing me, wondering if my life would ever be more than this. But every time I wanted to give up, I pictured Melissa's smirk. It became fuel. At 22, I landed an unpaid internship at a tiny real estate firm. I fetched coffee, filed contracts, stayed late memorizing property laws and negotiation strategies. One night, the senior agent forgot a key file. I delivered it to him at a client dinner. He invited me to sit in. I watched him close a multi-million-dollar deal, and something inside me clicked. Real estate wasn't just about property, it was about power. At 25, I bought my first duplex, a rundown wreck nobody wanted. Everyone told me I was crazy. 2 years later, I flipped it for triple the price. That was the start. From there, I built Rosa Holdings, my company, my empire, my mother's name etched into the skyline. By 30, I was worth more than the Lancasters ever dreamed. Then fate handed me the sweetest revenge of all. Their mansion, my childhood, prison, went up for sale. I bought it, in cash. I could have kicked them out immediately, but no. I wanted them to feel it. To live what I'd lived. Powerless. Small. Forgotten. Mr. Lancaster's business was already crumbling. Melissa's marriage had collapsed in scandal. Their perfect world was falling apart. I waited until they were at their weakest. Then I invited them to a gala. A glittering, high-profile event hosted at the newly renovated Lancaster estate. Reporters swarmed, CEOs mingled, cameras flashed. The Lancasters arrived in borrowed elegance, desperate to claw back their status. They didn't recognize me at first. When I stepped on stage, microphone in hand, the room went silent. "Good evening, everyone," I began, voice steady. "Tonight, I want to tell you a story about a little girl who grew up in this house. A girl who was treated like she was nothing. I told them everything. Every insult, every humiliation, every cruelty. Gasps filled the room. Reporters scribbled furiously. Then I turned to Mrs. Lancaster and Melissa, their faces pale, eyes wide with shame. "This house," I said softly. "The one where I was treated like dirt under your shoes. It's mine now, and tonight you're just guests in my home." The silence was deafening. Today I sit in the mansion's grand library, sunlight spilling through windows they once forbade me to touch. The Lancasters live in a cramped rental across town, stripped of their wealth, their pride shattered. And me? I have everything. Because sometimes revenge isn't about destroying them. It's about becoming everything they swore you'd never be.